All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the They're Okay podcast. Today, we have our lovely friend, Pete, from the band No More Kings. And real quick, today is unofficially sponsored by Culver's Root Beer.
Wow.
And,
Okay.
yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. Just kidding. It's not. Well, it's unofficial, so they can't sue us because I said it's unofficial.
Sure.
But anyway,
yeah.
Pete, welcome, man. It's nice to meet you via Zoom.
It's nice to be met. Thank you.
Good deal. Good deal. I'm just curious, how do you guys, I don't know how you guys know each other.
So let me clarify. Pete and I do not know each other at all. I'm just a big fan of, not to speak of you as if you're not here, Pete, but I'm a big fan of No More Kings. I have probably listened to 3, I don't know how you prefer it to be said, but your third album, 3, or I whatever.
No, 3, yeah.
3, yeah. I don't know. It might get weird with it. It's okay. I have listened to that album a million times, I'm sure. I have nearly cried to Tracy's song on the drive home a couple times. It's a fantastic record, and I am not as familiar, but also as thrilled with your other few albums. And I've recently been diving into your solo titled stuff on iTunes recently, or Apple Music rather. So I guess that was not the short answer, but the short answer is we don't know each other. I'm just a big fan, and we're from. Again, I don't really know that much about you, but I'm from Louisville-ish, and you were in Louisville-ish at some point in your life. So
yeah,
that's it. That's the story, Paul.
I love it. Cool. Well, let's hear more about that. Yeah, what'd you think of Louisville?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm super excited, Zach, that you picked the third album to dive into. For some reason, people slept on that album.
Weird.
I feel like maybe they didn't, or maybe I just don't know about it, but that's my favorite of our albums. And so the fact that you dug into that one most makes me really happy.
Nice.
I think there's a lot of really cool stuff on it. Most people I guess get nostalgic about the first one. So, it depends on what your first, I guess everybody feels this way about a band, right?
Sure. I have several questions.
Totally.
One big leading one about that first record, but we'll get to that.
Okay. All right. To answer the question that was asked, I actually loved Louisville. It was a really cool, it's weird because it's Kentucky, but it's like very metropolitan. It felt very like, it's a little city. So it's very like people are from all different places. There's a great art community there, a great music community there. You mentioned having Brooks Ritter on last time. He's one of my favorite humans, man. So he sang backups on our first album. Oh no, I'm sorry, awesome. on our second album. I'm sorry. Yeah, but anyway, he sang a bunch of backup parts. You can tell when you hear them.
I spent a good 10 minutes eating my own feet when we talked with Brooks. I'm obviously a big fan now, but when I was finding out about him, I was my memory failed me, and so I said a lot of embarrassing things where I was like, "Hey, I was at the show," and he was like, "That was my show," and I was like, "Oh, my bad, man." So, but no, he's great.
He's really cool.
Cool. That's very cool. If we could start this way, well, okay. I want to start with this question. It's a big one. Has Cobra Kai given you credit for their idea yet? Have they publicly acknowledged that?
No.
Oh, come on.
I know. You know what? So it's funny. I've been thinking a lot about this topic as Cobra Kai grows in popularity, and more people who are No More Kings fans are mentioning it, but also new people are discovering No More Kings by the association, or looking up the phrase, or just whatever, looking up Karate Kid stuff. And, that video ranks pretty high in search terms for that. I think initially I was a little bit like, oh man, come on guys, but now I feel like, all right, having seen all 3 seasons, it would be fun to be involved somehow. It would be fun for some kind of nod, but I get it. It doesn't really fit. It'd be weird to have a song that says "Sweep the Leg." You know what I mean? Now, where we are now, I'm not going to spoil or anything, but now, where we are now in the world, on the way into season 4, I can see it actually. Eagle Fang, Cobra Kai, like everything's built up enough where Johnny has his own thing going on. It might make sense to, anyway, it wouldn't be a totally out of the blue to feature it. But anyway, my point is, I'm over it. I'm okay with it. It's such a freaking good show that I totally give it a pass.
I actually haven't seen it.
Give it a shot.
I really want to. But when it came out, that was my first thought, because that was my first introduction to No More Kings, was Sweep the Leg. And I'm like, okay, well, this idea is not new. There's a song about it already.
Yeah, 15 years ago.
Yeah. So let's take it from here. usually the way we start these things out, although there haven't been that many, so we don't have a usually yet. Tell us about yourself as an artist. How did you get started? How'd you get to where you are now? And what's coming up for you?
Right on. That's a
broad question. Yeah, but
very broad, but I love it. It's funny that I landed as a sort of a music career because I studied visual art in college, and I always intended on being a painter. I always intended on being a visual artist. I always did music. I always made my own little songs. I remember when I was 16, I got a little 4-track recorder and did these like Bobby McFerrin sort of boop, taka, boop, taka, weird a cappella things. But I never really saw that as being something I could make a career with. And weirdly, I haven't. Because No More Kings happened, had Sweep the Leg, it got big, and then the record label collapsed and we just sort of faded away. And so we have a pocket of fans that we built during that time, and then just sort of, and that's why I was surprised that you even knew about the third album, because a lot of people, the train had passed by that point,
Well, quick interruption here. This might piece some of it together. I worked with a man named Josh Brown for a little while, who might have provided some horns.
Josh played horns on the yeah.
So that's the connection there. I've been to Neil's studio like one time. Side note, we would love to have Neil on as well to talk about his craziness, but we're not on his radar at all. But Josh was a big part of showing me what you guys were doing.
You've got 3 inroads now with me, Josh Brooks.
But I'm so glad that he introduced me to your music, because it's been a big part of my my life ever since then. Not to just fanboy out on it, but I think
that makes a lot of sense. That's why the third one, because you had somebody that was involved in that. That's really cool. So that's kind of fun, actually, that you came from the top down and you found Sweep the Leg, right?
Sure. Yeah. No. So there's a whole story here. The long short of it is that I was directly shown the music video to Sweep the Leg, thought, okay, that's super cool, but I was only, how many years ago was that? I'm only 26 now, so it wasn't, I wasn't super into music even at that point. Sure. I'm like, that's super cool, and then ended up listening to more of the third record, and then kind of doubling back into that and being like, oh, that's the same guy that Sweep the Leg.
Oh, that's crazy. That makes it even cooler. Okay.
And then I never pieced it together. The one time I was in, again, apparently this podcast is going to be about me today, Pete. I'm sorry.
I'm cool with that.
The one time I was in Neil's studio, he had the artwork up for the
Flying Boombox,
the Flying Boombox. Yeah, I was blanking on that. And I thought, that's so cool looking. And then I didn't even realize that was the album artwork until looking into your catalog later. So it's all one big circle.
No, that's really cool. Yeah. So anyway, just to piece the rest of it
let's talk about you.
No, I don't. So finished art school, moved to Los Angeles with Neil. Actually, we decided we were going to move to LA together. His now wife was his girlfriend at the time. They had a music project, and they were like, look, we can't do No More Kings stuff right now. We were No More Kings throughout college. So we're like, we're going to put No More Kings on hold, and we're going to do, my girlfriend's thing. And we did that for a while. I sang back up for that project for, a little while. And then they decided to move back to Kentucky, where she had family, and he's been there ever since. And weirdly, it was after that he decided, hey, let's, we had a chance to get signed as No More Kings and create the first album, and then and do all that and tour and everything. And Neil actually produced all 3 of the albums, but he never, in the beginning, he didn't tour with me. He was busy. He has another band with his wife, as I'm sure you know, called Dirtborn Robins, which is fantastic. So he was busy doing that stuff, kind of splitting himself between producing the No More Kings stuff. And then when I say produce, I mean that in the sense that he played every freaking instrument on the first album.
As he can,
except drums. Right? As he can and does. And then he played a lot of the second album. And then by the third album, I think, he was bringing in horns and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah. So what is your main instrument? Are you an instrumentalist or more of a arranger?
I'm a singer. No. I'm a singer, lyricist, and then I write a lot of stuff on acoustic guitar. I'm a terrible guitar player, but I taught myself enough to be able to write songs.
We could share
so
that.
I write a lot of things and then present them to Neil. And right on. Okay. So hey, but it's weird, man. Like I'm realizing, the Beatles didn't know how to read music. Like there's a huge range of what it means to be a musician, right? There's like the craft of it or the skill of it. And then there's just like having a good ear and having a good understanding and like being able to come up with cool melodies. Like melody and lyrics have always been really easy for me, but I don't know the circle of fifths. I don't know like theory. I can't tell you why a song works. I just know that it sounds good to me and it feels good. Neil, on the other hand, is a total prodigy, crazy genius, and can like deconstruct any song and tell you what it's hitting in the intervals and why it's working. So that was a good pairing for us because he polished out a lot of the roughness from me. But anyway, that's always been my role in No More Kings, is to lyrics and melody, and then Neil's role has been completely instrumentation and arrangement.
Very cool.
Now, in my own solo stuff that you said you were getting into recently, which I thank you for, because I'm having a hard time. Or I'm not having a hard time, but I always assume that people are not going to follow me from No More Kings stuff into solo stuff because it's very different. I'm going for much more of a like spacey, cinematic Radiohead kind of vibe, and No More Kings is a lot more fun and light. So I appreciate that you are checking out that stuff. But what I was gonna say is now I am producing my own stuff. So my last 2 albums, I've played everything on and produced myself. And so, taking Neil out of the equation for me has forced me to kind of get better at that stuff,
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, I knew he was going to do that, so I didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah. So where did so the idea of No More Kings? You said it started back in college for you guys. Where did the name come from? What's the significance there?
So Neil and I used to play just duo stuff in high school. We would always be the idiots on the back of the bus singing like crazy a cappella stuff. And anytime he grabbed a acoustic guitar, we would be doing stuff. That followed us into college, where we started playing officially. We would be hired to play like events and things. And then we actually toured all around New England playing other colleges. And we were doing actually really kind of well for a local group. We had like a standing this gig at this coffee shop where people would come. So it was kind of fun. They named a drink after us. They had a smoothie called the No More Kings. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy. So we stole the name from Schoolhouse Rock, which was
nice.
Yeah. So you remember that. So it was this little thing in the 80s, little animated way of teaching kids history. And that episode for No More Kings was about the Pilgrims leaving King George because he was a big meanie, and we want no more kings,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
dude.
a great chant to get started at a No More
Yeah,
Kings.
we want no more kings. That's
no
actually what we were hoping. We want no more kings. But no one ever did it.
Man.
Yeah. Paul, do you have anything to say? Pete, let me at first publicly acknowledge this, because I'm sure if people are following the They're Okay version of our podcast, they're like, man, Zach is talking a lot.
I'm
That
just
being
here to
said,
look good, man.
Paul, do you have anything in the bank you wanted to ask specifically before I just commandeer everything?
I mean, not yet. I'm just really pumped on the Schoolhouse Rock thing, man.
Yeah.
No. Since we're talking about that, was it just the name, or did Schoolhouse Rock music influence you at all?
Music, not so much, but the vibe for sure. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like it was this like super charming animated thing that taught us history, and there was something like really fun about it was 80s, but I think it had like a 70s kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just a bill,
It
and
always-
I'm sitting here. It was just like, what? This
Totally,
is
dude.
It always felt kind of psychedelic to me in a sense.
Very
A lot of that
psychedelic.
Schoolhouse Rock
very
stuff.
banana splits and like weird, the bubble letters, kind of weird stuff. So to answer your question, absolutely the vibe. So we both were
Cool.
like, well, because we knew we wanted No More Kings to not do traditional angsty love songs. We broke up with me and broke my heart. We didn't want to do any of that kind of.
I'll try not to be personal.
People were doing that great. Oh no, sorry.
It's all good.
Well, we knew we wanted to do something a little sillier. I knew I wanted to tell. So in the case of Sweep the Leg, Karate Kid was one of my favorite movies growing up, and I knew I wanted to tell that story from Johnny's perspective because we saw it, Daniel-san's perspective in the movie. But when at the end of the movie, he gives Daniel-san the trophy, and he says, "You're all right, LaRusso." And I was like, "Oh man, Johnny's not the bad guy here. Like he was manipulated by his sensei. Johnny's actually a kind of cool kid. He just was misguided." So I was like, I need to write that song. And then one of my favorite shows growing up was Knight Rider. So I was like, I want to write that song, but from the perspective of the car, convincing Michael to like be a hero, So that was my vibe, my idea or Neil and I both actually, our idea for No More Kings was, let's tell these really fun stories from our childhood, or not just childhood, but like things that we grew up with that were meaningful to us. Like Schoolhouse Rock influencing the name, like just kind of living in that fun, carefree kind of time. And then like, let's tell our versions of these stories. Let's tell like a little bit left of center. And that moved all the way up into the third album with Tracy's song. I was like, what if I told the story about the guy, he's the last guy to walk on the moon. This is a real guy, Eugene Cernan. Is really, and I've read this article where he wrote his daughter's name or his initials in the moon dust because it would stay there forever with no atmosphere, no wind. There's nothing to knock it away. It's going to stay there forever.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a beautiful sentiment. I want to write a song about that. And so taking these moments and then, or like on that album, there's a song about Richard Nixon, and it's kind of a battle rap song about Nixon being like, yeah, you can't catch me. I'm tricky, So like, it's always been my intention with No More Kings specifically to tell those kinds of stories and not get into the world of like, I want to sex you up kind of stuff,
Yeah. That's refreshing, man. I appreciate that.
Well,
because it was funny when we were preparing for this, Zach was like, oh, there's this band No More Kings. I'm a big fan. I was like, I've never heard of this band. I'll check them out. And like when I read No More Kings, I'm like, is this going to be like Rage Against the Machine? Like, yeah, down with authority. Yeah.
Right.
And then I listened to it. I was like, oh, this is not this at all. This is fun.
Right. Complete opposite.
So, yeah, it's cool. You capture that very well with your music, man. It's awesome.
That's funny, Paul. I wonder if a lot of people, I always overthink this stuff, and maybe I'm overthinking it here, but I wonder now if the name maybe ever turned anybody off thinking it would be a little more heavy and hardcore, and they maybe missed out.
I definitely never thought it was going to be a Schoolhouse Rock reference, but I mean, it's great. I think that's cool, man. Leave it open for interpretation.
Yeah, hey, why not?
So, Pete, what kind of impression do you get from our name, The OK?
The OK.
Ooh.
I mean, it reminds me of OK Go a little bit, obviously.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I definitely get a sense that it's going to be indie. Like just indie, like soft pop rock.
I'm cool.
Just okay.
I'm cool with that impression.
All right. How off am I?
No, I would say we have been described as like indie songs packaged in a very like alt pop new wave.
New wave.
Bundle.
That's fun. All right.
Yeah.
So,
you're a little more 80s.
Yeah, a little 80s.
We do love the 80s.
Our guitarist Nick, who couldn't be here for this recording, he has mastered the art of chorus-steeped guitar tones. So that's really, we just play like normal songs, and then he throws on the beautiful chorus at all times.
It's great.
That's great.
But yeah, enough about us.
No, actually, that's curious. If you don't mind, we'll take a couple seconds because I do want to know. Sure. I love hearing what other musicians are doing. So you're in Louisville.
Yes and no. So Nick and I are technically in Louisville as our musical hometown, right? But we live south of there in Elizabethtown. Okay. And Paul's near Detroit. So we're a little distanced. So far, so good. We started last March, conveniently, so
you started right
COVID-19.
at the beginning of COVID.
Wow. So we haven't really had to do much. We've had some songwriting weekends that we've done, and then Paul has come down to rehearse a few times. But
that's actually super interesting to me, Zach, because so most bands so there's a No More Kings connection here. Most bands start by having a local following, and they build that up to a boiling point, and then they start. Okay, cool. We can travel, within an hour or two of, and they start to grow out from that, and they build something from their live show. No More Kings never had that because we hit with that viral music video for that Karate Kid song. Yeah. So right out of the gate, we didn't have a local audience. Right out of the gate, we had a nationwide scattered audience of people that were in the know that found this video, right? So we had some, and then we toured. So we had some places where we would play where we were on the radio, or people had saw the video, or we were on VH1 or MTV, and then those shows would do great. And then we'd play somewhere else where it was just a supporting show and no one knew who the hell we were. And so those didn't do as well. So it was a weird sensation. So you guys started in a time where you cannot play live shows.
Yeah, it's been, I would say, almost near crippling to do it so far.
So I was thinking actually you have an advantage. Because the reason I say that is
you spin it.
The reason I say that is no one can do live shows right now.
Fair.
So it's not like you suddenly can't do live shows.
Yeah.
Everyone has to figure out how to do an online thing, which I think is going to carry over if we ever figure out COVID and we ever get out of this mess. I think there's going to be a lot of lessons that we learned from this time that are going to carry over. I think musicians like John Legend is going on TikTok and playing stuff. Like people now have realized, okay, I can't ignore live streaming. I can't ignore the internet. I got to get in touch with my fans physically. I can't just hide behind my record label making announcements. No one cares about that anymore. That's not how you make music. So I think you guys came along at a really interesting time where you can you can own this idea of creating an online presence first. And then when things clean up, you will have generated demand for live shows that you can then play. But that means you have to really own the live space, which means you have to figure out how to do kind of what an OK Go did, like capture attention with video stuff, you know?
Yeah.
We're getting there, I think. I think we're learning the necessity of that. The biggest thing is, you know, you like you said, you guys had like a viral video.
Yeah.
And those are a lot harder. Maybe it's
it's impossible. 15 years ago, you can't do that now.
It feels impoxfully these days.
It is. It would happen, and then they'd be over it in 2 days.
And so we're willing to put out a ton of content to try to, you know, tactfully try to get that going. But, you know, it's one of those things. We're looking to find a sincere audience, which is, I'm sure, every artist's goal. Not just someone who's like, hey, I saw this TikTok, and I'll see another one tomorrow. You know, that sort of deal.
Totally. Zach, that's a great way to say it. And the thing is, not every band feels that way. I thought I would think that too, but not every band feels that way. A lot of bands probably try to go for the fame. They try to go for the big thing, but that's so fleeting. If what you're going for is exactly what you said, you're going to be fine, because you can absolutely find real, genuine connections with fans. And if you're doing this kind of thing where you're being this vulnerable and this open about it all, and you're letting fans in and letting them be. So how often does this podcast? Is this a weekly podcast, a monthly podcast?
So we do a monthly podcast. Funny you should. This is a great plug, man. I'm glad we got on your podcast, Pete, to promote our stuff.
Thanks, Pete.
We do a monthly podcast where the three of us in the OK just get together and chat about whatever's on our minds, whatever we're thinking about. Typically a lot of stuff like this, where it's like, how are we feeling about the climate of the music industry, stuff like that. It sounds boring when you say it that way, though. So we just talk about whatever. And then we just recently started this. As we're recording this, we've only put out 2 episodes, but we've got, I would say, 5, Paul, maybe 5 episodes kind of in the pipeline there. So we plan on releasing these They're OK episodes as frequently as we have them, but they'll come out every week.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that ability to do something consistent. Now, do you guys have like, not to turn this into like a workshop, but I'm curious about it. Do you guys have a social media presence / do you have a preferred like a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram? What's your thing?
I would say we're mainly an Instagram band.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So Instagram is very visual, and it allows for a little. Okay, and it allows for. So, are any of you guys visual artists or?
I do a lot of graphic design stuff. Nick is really good with the more traditional, you know, like paints and pencils and pens and stuff. I wouldn't say we've integrated that too much into our stuff. I mean, obviously, we have to do graphic design work for promos and things, but.
Yeah, but if you're not opposed to it, that's a great way to get attention. The reason I say that is you can only show your face, and it's important to show your faces, obviously, but you can only show that stuff on Instagram so often. But if you can do really quirky, interesting artwork that ties into the themes of your songs or whatever, that could be really cool.
Yeah. And I'm no model.
Instagram is such a visual medium. You're what?
Of course. I'm no model, so I don't know that people want to see my face all that much. I think that's a great segue, not to just flip it, but let's to turn it back to you a little bit. You post a lot of doodles to finished artworks. I've seen it all on your Instagram. What are you getting into on that front these days? Are you doing a lot of that regularly, or just kind of as you want to?
No, I've always done like daily artwork. That's kind of my thing. If I ever want to get known for something other than No More Kings, I think it would be that I'm an advocate for daily creating. Like I want more people to find time in their day to just sit down with a sketchbook and make something, or sit down with some watercolors and make something. I've got a little loop station set up so that even if I'm not in the mood to write music, I can just go over there and beatbox something into it and pretty quickly come up with like a groove. And then I'm like, okay, cool. I satisfied that part of me for the day. And so every day I'll find a music or art related task to just kind of do to kind of loosen up or keep fun. And most of it does not end up on Instagram. But lately I've been trying to force myself to, and this is a lesson that probably you guys will learn on your own too. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to do the grind of the internet treadmill of feeding the beast, as they call it, when you're just like pumping content out into this thing, because you feel like you have to stay relevant. And that's one way to do it, sure. But I think it's more important to make sure it's genuine and it's an outpouring of something that you're already doing. And so that's what I started doing for myself. I'm like, I'm already drawing every day. I'm already doing all this stuff every day. I might as well like share a little bit of the stuff that I'm happy with. And the other side benefit of that for me is I've been getting better lately, which is weird because like, you know, I studied art in school, but you know, you kind of plateau for a little while.
Of course.
And so people are actually noticing that I'm getting better at drawing, you know, so it's kind of fun to let.
Great.
Yeah. But again, you're letting people along for the journey, along for the ride. That's the other big thing that I found. So I started a Patreon recently. I don't know if you guys are getting into that, but you should consider it at some point. That I think is going to be the main bread and butter way that artists and musicians make a living from now on, because the music itself is getting so devalued. And that's not me crying about it because it's just the truth, right? Like people don't buy music. Now. It kind of is, but you know what? It always was. And this is the weird thing that I think, right? It always was. People always listen to the radio. You always listen to more than you. And what happened is the same thing that happens now. You heard something so much that you fell in love with it and you incorporate it into your daily routine. And then you were like, you know what? I'm just going to buy that CD. And so you bought it. It was always the way. You always hear it first for free, fall in love with it, and then make the decision to purchase it. You know, and that's a funnel. So it's, you know, you have to count on the fact that it gets smaller and smaller the further along you go. And as artists now, the great thing is, the bad thing is we don't have radio. No one's playing our stuff on the radio. You know, that just doesn't happen. But the good thing is we have Spotify and we have the ability to get on people's radar and get on people's new, you know what I mean? Like you can be discovered. TikTok is another great way. Like you can get discovered by anybody now who has an interest in your sound in a way that we were really hard to do in the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, to wrap it all up, the quick point is I'm realizing now how important it is to open that conversation up with your audience, to show them all the stuff you're working on, get feedback, let them see you growing, but more importantly, let them be along for their journey. They want you to succeed as much, if not more than you do. Like they are championing, like if you have an audience, they're championing, well, I can't say this word right now, championing for you. They want you, they're your cheerleaders. They want you to do well, you know? So it makes the most sense to me to open up your online life to them, let them be part of it, let them like celebrate those victories with you.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's awesome. And that's honestly a big part of why we wanted to start this podcast, because we feel like there's no downside to bringing other artists to the forefront of your promotion and of
absolutely.
And these kind of conversations where it's almost been more enriching to us than to you to learn from you. But no, you're one of those guests I feel like we could talk to for like 4 hours and we barely. But we are on the free version of Zoom. I hate to bring that up.
Nice.
So we got about 8 minutes right now. I would love to know about this. How can people support you? What is the biggest way that they can find your stuff? You said you have a Patreon. If you want to plug that, that's 100% cool with us.
Sure, right on. So the best thing is to just DASPETY, DASPETY. It's like the German for DASPETY. I don't know. I watched Das Boot and I was like, I've had that email address since high school, since college. But anyway, so daspety.com. That's like my website, and that's the hub that sends you to everywhere else. But yeah, I'm trying to make Patreon as fun as I can, but I don't expect people to start there. That's kind of a commitment. So I would suggest go check out daspety.com, look at my artwork, listen to the music, and if it's anything that you're into, there's other ways to support that.
All right,
cool.
Awesome. Paul, you have any final thoughts, questions?
Yeah, man. Okay, so when was like the prime time for touring for you? Like what years?
So we hit it hard 2007 through 9, 2006, 7, and around that like 3 to 4 year period.
Cool. Okay. I wanted to know because that's when I was going to a ton of shows when I was in high school. So I probably I don't know. You see so many bands that are just on like these little tours, or you saw them in some random venue. But I was just curious if you had any like highlights from those years on your tour stops, like any places or certain shows or some crazy place you stayed or some random fans you met or whatever.
Oh my
gosh, tour stories.
Too many to tell in the 6 minutes we've got left. That could be a whole other episode. We could do the tour diaries.
I'd be down for that.
Hey, if you want to sign on for another episode, we'll get you scheduled today. So.
Absolutely. I'm in.
Love
Yeah. So touring is. Have you guys toured? Have you or
We have
with other
not
projects?
had the chance. Well, yeah, we've toured with other projects, but not as.
Yeah.
I know, not as yeah. But I just
Uh,
wondered if you had that experience.
Interestingly, part of our lore is that we actually connected with Paul filling in as drummer for our past band, Ocean City. He's actually wearing the T-shirt right now.
Oh, nice.
So that's how we got connected. But yeah, we've toured before.
Right on. So it's a mixed bag, right? Like it's extremely exciting. There's nothing quite like it, but it's also exhausting. And when people say, "Oh, that's cool, you got to see so many," like I've toured just about every state, in this country, and people are like, "That's so exciting, you got to see every state." But it's like, no, you see the highway, you see the, and then you see the hotel, and then you show up 5 hours before you do your sound check, and you're stuck in the little club, and so it's not glamorous. It's not for everybody. But as you were saying, Paul, like the people you meet and the fans, like I had so many crazy, like really fun, like sneaking underage fans in because they were too young to get to the the venue, and you pretend they're like part of your merch table so they can get in, and then years later they write you and they say, "Man, I remember that show." And like, yeah, I think I want to close with this thought because like you make music for yourself first, right? You sit down to make music because you grew up listening to music and you're like, I want to do that. And so you make music for yourself first, but there comes a point. And this is why I love the word release when it comes to albums, because when you release an album, you let it go. It's a little tiger and you've released it into the wild. It's not yours anymore, right? The album goes out and it finds fans, and now the fans are part of it. It's not your album. So I feel that way about music in general. That's how you really close the loop of it. You make music for yourself, but if it doesn't connect with an audience, it's like the tree in the woods, right? Like if there's no one there to hear it, did you really put an album out? So my point in saying that is, I didn't realize that early on. And I realized that as time went, that my music had impact on people's lives. And everybody had a different story about what a song meant to them. Some people you walked their daughter down the aisle to a song of mine. Some people like it got them through chemotherapy, or it got somebody through jail. Like I get stories from how my music, and that was never the intention. You don't write these songs. Hey, I'm going to write a song that somebody can play at their wedding. You know what I mean? Like, You know what I'm saying? But like these things happen, and your music impacts people. So not to get too lofty, but it's a nice reminder for me sometimes when I'm stuck in my own head and I'm making music that it's just for me and whatever. And no matter how personal you think something that you're writing is, there's always somebody out there going through a similar thing. There's always somebody out there that can relate to that or is impacted somehow by your music. So that's the fascinating thing to me. And when you go on tour, you get to really see that. You get to see people come up to you afterwards who are shaking because they're nervous because they're meeting you. And you know what I mean? And they tell you the story about the song you wrote. And you're like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this affected you this way.
I hope that that happens again very soon for all of us.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's a good Irish blessing. May this happen again to all of us.
May this happen again.
I like that.
Well, Pete, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a blast talking to you. I'm so happy that just a random Instagram message worked for scheduling that. That was
right?
awesome. So the biggest thing I hope people do is go listen to your stuff and go support your art because, like I said, it's been something that I've been enjoying for a while now. So would love to push people in that direction. I do have one final question for you, and I hope it's not an annoying one. You have a very glorious beard right now, as Paul does, but your beard is very nice. Do you have any intention of bringing back the glorious goatee?
It's hysterical you asked me that because I've been posting a lot of sweep the leg footage lately. I've been on like a weird nostalgia kick. I found an old hard drive with a ton of like behind the scenes stuff, and I posted. I wish I had it right around to show you, but I posted the from that video where I had these crazy big mutton chops, shaved here, and this like crazy goatee down to here. And this writer friend of mine from Los Angeles was like, "That goatee belongs in a museum." I was like, "Oh man, it's so goofy." But have you seen Zach? My last album, my Apocalypse album, I did a music video called "For Burned by the Sun." Have you seen that? Probably not.
I haven't seen the video. No.
After this, go check that out. The reason I say that is I had this. It was out to here, dude, and I got this. I look like this crazy homeless Mickey Rourke. Like hobo with a shotgun looking like, check it out because this is the smallest it's been in a long time.
All right. Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for humoring me in that question. Again, thank you so much for coming on. And again, to those listeners, go check out Pete Mitchell and No More Kings and everything else that's coming from your direction.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Dude, thank you. This was inspirational, man. We're going to be talking to you again.
Right on. I hope so. I had a fun.
I hope so. It's up to you. But
No, it's gone down. I decided. It's gone
okay.
down.
Paul's decided, Pete.
Pete's the man. All right, take it easy, dude.
All right. Thanks, guys.